Diego Pavia is better than Kyron Drones in every way possible.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Oh, yeah. Welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day, and shout out to the everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Well, it's not around the corner. It's here. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. So on this episode, we're going to take an early look at Virginia Tech, right on the heels of their matchup with South Carolina back on Sunday. It was an interesting game. It showed us a lot about what they're about. So we're going to take a look at them. Virginia Tech does have a lot of good weapons, and I think they do some good things offensively. We're going to look at their defense. They're for real, but there is a potential matchup problem somewhere in there. So we're going to take a look at that. But first, man, the line was -3 in Virginia Tech's favor. Virginia Tech was favored. It is now since moved down to 2.5. Probably going to be 1.5 by game time. This line is going to be super volatile. So if you can get in on +2.5, I would do so. So visit FanDuel right now. So speaking of duels, we're going to talk about this quarterback duel. Diego Pavia versus Kyron Drones. This is going to be an interesting one. Last year, Kyron Drones was theoretically the favorite coming in, 13.5-point favorites. Virginia Tech was. He was clearly the better quarterback. We didn't know a whole lot about Diego Pavia at this point. We knew that he took down Auburn. We knew that he was a tough kid, but playing in the SEC, opening with Virginia Tech, we just didn't know quite yet. We had an idea that he might be good. He had all the tools. He had all the attributes. He had all the intangibles to be good. We knew he had a chance, and boy, did he show us something. This year, it's a lot different. This year, Diego Pavia comes in riding high. He had a great 275 yards on 20 of 25 passing in the opening game. He's been the media darling, media superstar of the offseason, and he's gotten better. He's improved. Kyron Drones comes in, super talented, but there's some holes there. There's some things about Kyron Drones that you're like, wait, hold on. Because last year, all the way up through week 1 of this year, you're sitting there looking at Kyron Drones going, okay, well, he's great on here, but then, trouble strikes here. And it's really his decision making. And against South Carolina, threw some beautiful passes. There was a couple of passes that got them down in the red zone, down in scoring position, and really moved the ball down the field pretty well for the most part. But I think there was some bad misses. I think his decision-making is shaky. The bad interception in the red zone, it did, the defense did pick him up and get a safety. But it just felt like at times he disappeared. And it felt like at times he was struggling, and it just didn't seem like he was in sync with his receivers. It didn't seem like all of that, right? Diego Pavia, on the other hand, super efficient, made great decisions, and some of the decisions he passed up were even better than the ones he made. There were some times where he could have bailed early. He didn't. He hung in there. He delivered a good pass. He understood taking care of himself. I don't think he took too many unnecessary shots, although there was a couple of shots he took I think were bad. But for the most part, he was smart in that regard. In the run game, he was a factor. I think his just pocket awareness, his savviness, all of that showed. And he's a veteran, and he should be this good. He should be that, right? He should be in the pocket. One of the plays that really stood out to me in this, when you compare these quarterbacks, is Diego Pavia drop back it was Isaiah Glass. He was on the left side this time, that because they flip strong and weak or strong and quick, and he was on the left side at this point. Well, he got beat, and the defender's bearing down on Pavia. Pavia knows it. Pavia sees him because he's coming from his open face side, so he sees him and he feels the rush coming. Well, he waits. He knows he's going to bail. He drops back. He sees that. He goes, okay, I see a run lane here. I can't get this throw off. I know I'm going to bail. Well, instead of bailing early, which I think would have alerted the linebackers that they'd come down and make the play at the line of scrimmage, he waited till that guy was basically on him, reaching out to grab him. He ducks him, slips out the left side, picks up the first down. Last year's Diego Pavia would have hit that back step and just took off. Would have ran into a pile of bodies, would have ran into a linebacker, safety would have come down. Somebody would have been right there at the line of scrimmage. It would have been no gain, minimal gain at best, right? But I think it's kind of that thing where he's setting people up. And that's why I think he's better. Like he's going to move the ball against this defense. He's going to be savvy enough to move the ball against this defense. And when you compare the quarterback duel, now I'm not saying Kyron Drones is terrible. I'm just saying when you compare the two, like the decision making, I think is the main thing. The consistency is another. I think Pavia is better in those regards than Kyron Drones, and I think that's what's going to be the difference in this matchup, because Drones can make some spectacular plays. But like if you really look at last year's matchup, it was the same thing. He made some spectacular plays, then he just disappeared for a little while. And then, holding the ball too long, getting himself in negative plays, not setting up the protection right, taking sacks, all that stuff. And I can't remember if there was an interception or not. I don't remember that far back. But, I'm pretty sure that for stretches of that game, Kyron Drones was really vastly ineffective. And Diego Pavia, he was commanding the offense. And at this point, we didn't really know who he was, so it was still kind of a shock. But he looked like he had been doing this for years and years and years, and he had just kept marching that offense right back down the field. He had poise, he had moxie, he had that intensity about him, and he just commanded that game. I think he's going to do a lot of the same this year as well. And it's going to be a lot more difficult, obviously, because you have the crowd factor in it. You have the Lane Stadium, the Inner Sandman. The crowd's going to be juiced. It's their home opener. All of that stuff. This Hokie team is going to be extra motivated. So Vandy's not really going to sneak up on them. This is a game they had circled for a long, long time. Actually, since they walked off the field last year. They circled this thing going, okay, we're going to get him back next year. So this has been fresh on their minds. This has probably been something they've been preparing for all off season. So, for them, it's going to be extra motivation. But for Pavia, he thrives in that kind of stuff. But when you just look at the straight quarterback duel, when you look at Drones versus Pavia versus Drones, I would take, and I know this is Locked On Vandy, and you're probably surprised that I'm going to take Diego Pavia here, but I would take Diego Pavia, even if this was Locked On Mizzou, where I had any relation whatsoever to it. I think most people would look at this, watch those two play, they would take Diego Pavia. Pavia is more consistent. It just feels like he's more in tune with the offense. Kyron Drones, inconsistent, can make some pretty boneheaded decisions at times. And Pavia's made his fair share of mistakes, and that happens. But I think overall he's more consistent. Kyron Drones will make some spectacular plays, but I think he follows them up with some head scratchers and some things that you're like, what? So in a pure quarterback battle, give me Diego Pavia just for the command of the offense, the decision making, the newly found pocket presence and pocket awareness. Give me all of that for Diego Pavia. And he is better than Kyron Drones, and that's going to be the difference in this game. That's why this line is moving. That's why I like Vandy in this matchup. But that's not all. That's not the only reason I like Vandy. If you listen to the other episode, they have some potential matchup problems with this team. And we're going to talk about that next. But first, it's all about Supply House. Check this out. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. You need parts to a project? Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer, man. Part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Plus, their Trademaster perks like priority shipping or dedicated support make the whole process smoother. So if you're a contractor, I don't see why you wouldn't be using Supply House. So join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com, a real people, real service. Supply House. Want to talk about Rougier. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougier Ready. Rougier Ready is the next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that take hours, Rougier's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If traditional options haven't worked, Rougier might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch, and I love that it's completely online. Rougier connects you with board-certified doctors and ships your treatment discreetly to your door. You can even read real customer reviews on their site. It's helping a lot of people feel more confident and present in the moment. So head to Rougier.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege and use promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rougier website for full safety information. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. We appreciate you, everydayers. Shout out to you. You guys make it happen. If you need a second listen, Locked On SEC, that's the place to go. And all the other shows in the network of SEC shows, the family of shows, it's great, man. It's great. So we're talking about an early look at Virginia Tech. And the thing that really stands out about this matchup is obviously the quarterback duel. Kyron Drones is talented. He's super talented, right? We know that. Diego Pavia, we know what he is. He's a superstar and happens to be a hell of a quarterback as well. So this is an interesting thing. And as a quarterback, you need help. You need weapons. You need things around you to help you perform, right? And Kyron Drones has had that, but he hasn't been able to consistently utilize those weapons. And he has some pretty good weapons himself. But here's the thing about this. Here's the thing that's going to carry the Hokies this season. This is the thing I've been most impressed with. And this was the thing I was most impressed with on Sunday when I watched them against South Carolina, is their defense, right? And so here is kind of how I saw Virginia Tech here. They come into their home opener off a tough loss to South Carolina, have a bad taste in their mouth from last year's loss to Vandy. We talked about that as a motivational factor. I think Vandy's going to push right through that. Their offense moves the ball well. They have weapons, but can be inconsistent. Kyron Drones' decision-making is iffy. That's how I would describe it. All right, but the main point right now is this defense. They're stingy. They held South Carolina at 3.2 yards per carry, and they were able to get 4 sacks on Lenora Sellers. One of the promising parts for Vandy is, though, they struggled versus the tight end. So let's talk about that a little bit. When South Carolina was able to move the ball, and they did move the ball a little bit, when they moved the ball, they were able to do it in chunk yardage, and they were able to at times be able to push the ball vertically down the field, right? And this was a good game. This was an interesting game because I noticed that they struggled against the tight end. And here's the thing about Vanderbilt, if you don't know already, or if you're a Virginia Tech fan tuning in, Eli Stowers is going to be a problem for a lot of people. He's getting more healthy. And I just think that when you look at how to attack this defense, I think that's where the real struggle is going to be for Virginia Tech. I just don't think. And with Vanderbilt having now some legitimate speed and some legitimate options on the outside that you have to pay attention to, I don't think they can key in on Eli Stowers because somebody else is going to beat him if they do that. So you're left with a safety, or you're left with a line, or even better, if you're left with a linebacker, which would be stupid, but you're left with somebody that I don't think is going to be able to handle Eli Stowers' athleticism. And that presents a problem for this Hokie defense. And so that's where, that's one of my more confident points about this game. And that's what I think is going to help elevate Diego Pavia's performance, is that he's going to have that weapon in Eli Stowers to go to either vertically down the field or over the middle or just some big chunk yardage. I think they're going to be able to move the chains a lot. I think they're going to be able to open some things up in the run game because of Eli Stowers and the matchup problem that he's going to create. Now, that's a real struggle point for their defense. But also, I think the 3.2 yards per carry for South Carolina, that's a concerning stat because Vanderbilt is such a running team. But I do think they're a little bit more dynamic in the run game because that's more of their philosophy. South Carolina is I think they're still trying to figure out what they are. Honestly, it felt like they were trying to figure out exactly what they are and exactly how they're going to attack because Sellers, he didn't look comfortable. And some of that was Virginia Tech's defense. And some of that was just, I just don't think they've really quite figured out just what they're going to be as an offensive unit. So Vanderbilt coming in, they know what they are. So that I think that's going to help them be more pointed in this attack. Now, some of Vanderbilt's guys they need to focus on, James DeJonkam. I think I said that right. I have no idea. Somebody correct me in that. Some Virginia Tech fans gonna from the top rope elbow drop me. But Kelvin Gilliam, I think they have a really good, strong defensive front. Those are just two guys that stood out. I could have named any set of names there from that front seven and could have landed on somebody pretty good. So Vandy's going to have their hands full with those guys, and that's to be expected. That's not a surprise here, and they're just going to have to play well up front. And in the run game, as I said before, this offensive line is built for the run, and they're going to be good. They're going to be solid. They're going to be, they're going to be dominant in that facet of the game. They pushed them around last year with a worse offensive line. I think Virginia Tech's gotten better on defense. I think their two coordinator hires are going to be good. Philip Montgomery is going to be good, but I just don't know if it's really set in just yet. Virginia Tech really offensively hasn't found their identity. Defensively, they've kind of found something, but I think there's, it's still developing, and it's something that, they should be excited about, and it's going to be good. I just, at this point, I just don't know how good. And Vegas doesn't know how good either because this line is all over the place. But they do have the home field advantage. They do have all of that going for them. So for that, that's going to give them a slight advantage. But I just think that this offensive line is just, Vandy's offensive line, they do what they do so well that I think it's going to pose problems for Virginia Tech. And they're just going to avalanche him. Diego Pavia is going to be part of the run game. I think he's going to be a heavier part of the game plan. I think Seti's going to have a good game. Caleb Barnett on the jet sweep is a weapon that none of us knew was good, but it is. Trey Richardson as well. You're going to have some RPO stuff. Diego Pavia just looks so much more sure of himself in the pocket. He's so much more decisive. He's just there, man. He's just got it. And he hangs in there on his reads longer. He He's more deceptive, and he's just there's levels to this offense that he's achieved with the continuity that it just poses problems for what I believe to be a really good Hokie defense. And they're going to make their plays, and that's going to happen. But I just think that they're going to struggle with Eli Stowers. They're just going to struggle finding balance. And I think Vanderbilt has a chance to really kind of put them on their heels a little bit. And the first half of last year's game was just Vanderbilt pushing them around all game long. And it wouldn't shock me for them to come out and do that again because they have a bigger and better offensive line than they did last year. So it wouldn't shock me, like I said, to see them come out, power, counter, quarterback runs, outside zone, jets, all kind of stuff, short passes, slant, RPOs, bubbles, screen passes, stuff like that. I wouldn't shock me for them to come out and start pushing Virginia Tech around a little bit. They did so last year, and it was a worse roster. So stay tuned for that one. It's going to be a fun matchup. This team is good. I really like what Virginia Tech is doing. I really like what because they're onto something with their defense. I just don't know if they're quite there yet. So we'll see. But watch out for the matchup with Eli Stowers. That's going to be a problem for Virginia Tech, and it's going to be a huge bonus for Vanderbilt. So we're going to how does Vanderbilt defend a guy like Kyron Drones? Like what is it about this offense that Vanderbilt needs to watch out for? We'll talk about that next. Hey, we need some help because we have this little survey here that I meant to tell you about. But Locked On wants to hear from you. We put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer the questions about our advertising. So go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes the survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks for helping us out. Speaking of helping, FanDuel. Hopefully my FanDuel picks, except for the Clemson one. The Clemson one I didn't do you any favors with, but hopefully they helped you. But the NFL season's almost here. FanDuel is here to make sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Man, I love using FanDuel because it fits how you like to bet. Player props. I love player props, building same game parlays, or even jumping in live action as it unfolds. All of that stuff, man, it makes it even more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick and easy, and it's best way to add a little more energy to any Sunday or any Saturday, really, if you like betting on college. So there's a lot of fun things to do within FanDuel, and they make it so fun and so easy to play. So I got a question for you. Are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel to place your first $5 bet. Now, college football's back. It's so back, man. Great first week. And I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout, all of that stuff. No, not for me. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives you the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pulled up Game Time, and in just a couple of taps, I saw amazing deals, man. I'm talking about just name a game, wherever you are. The Vanderbilt game, there was prices as low as $25. And, my favorite parts about the app are this, man. The app made it super simple. I could even see the exact view from my seat before I bought it. I love zone deals. I pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save big. Honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way that I've bought tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go. Download Game Time today. All right. Wrapping up the show here. Locked On Vandy. Thanks for making us part of your day. Thanks for making us one of your listens, your first listen, hopefully. And thank you. Without you guys, none of this happened. So talking about Virginia Tech, talking about this quarterback duel and why I think it's favored in terms of Diego Pavia, like why I think this is a totally different matchup than last year. And we talked about the line of scrimmage and Virginia Tech. They've got some weapons, but, honestly, with this, offensive line, they're still trying to figure things out, right? And they have a couple of really good receivers, Aiden Green and Donovan Green. I believe they're brothers. And, those guys are electric. Those guys can make some things happen. But just like Kyron Drones being inconsistent, they had some drops and they had some plays, some negative plays. Like this team, just right now, I think they did some really good things against South Carolina, on both sides of the ball. They really did. They have some weapons. They were able to move the ball a little bit. They were able to create some things. But they just weren't able to finish down in the red area. They were just inconsistent across the board. They 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards in a lot of scenarios. Like they just kept shooting themselves in the foot. Untimely penalties, turnovers, drops, negative yardage, assignment busts, all that stuff. Like they're an offense, specifically offense right now, but they're an offense trying to figure themselves out. And with Brent Pry likely on the hot seat, I don't know. Unfortunately, I don't know that he has time to do that. And going down 0-2 doesn't help that cause. So what I'm saying is this: if I'm Vanderbilt's defense, I'm doing a lot of what I did last year, which is reestablish the line of scrimmage. But I'm coming after Kyron Drones. I'm going to take my corners. I'm going to lock up their guys. We're going to be physical at the point of attack, and we're going to get hits on Kyron Drones. Because what we noticed a season ago, and I don't think Kyron Drones has made some seismic shift in the way he plays or the way he thinks, is Vanderbilt was able to get some hits on him. They were able to get to him. They were able to pressure him. They were able to get him to the ground. They were able to get him with a little bit of fear. Miles Capers is a wizard at that. Keanu Coate, I think, is going to have to come in and play some minutes. You're going to see this defense, and they rotated a lot of guys against Charleston Southern. So, there's a lot of guys who know the system, who can contribute in a big way. And so what I like to see here is the biggest key for this, and the biggest thing I've noticed with this, is that they're going to be able to get to Kyron Drones. They're going to be able to get in the throwing lanes. They're going to be able to get hits on him. They're going to be able to disrupt his timing. They're going to be able to do a lot of things. And this offense is also what seems like from the first game, and unless they clean it up, which they very well could, some of that stuff is fixable, but they were inconsistent a lot, and we just don't know, because it just seems like they're playing a step slow right now, because they're trying to figure things out. They're trying to understand. They're trying to this offense just isn't navigating at full speed yet. It may not be till week 3 or 4 or 5 until this team's hitting on all cylinders. They got unlucky with a really bad first 2 games matchup wise with South Carolina and now Vanderbilt. So they're not going to have time to really figure things out. They're not going to have the ability to sit there and try to figure things out and sort through some things and try out some things and figure out who they are. They needed to do that quickly. They didn't do it against South Carolina. They got beat. Luckily, their defense, luckily for them, I think this defense is going to kind of their defense is going to keep them in a lot of games. Let's just put it that way. Their defense is pretty sporty. They're pretty fast. They're pretty physical, things like that. But if your offense, and I think this was the difference in the game against South Carolina, if your offense is struggling to find its identity, if it's struggling to keep drives going, if it's struggling to move the ball, it's going to put that defense out. And that the more plays that defense has, the more tired it's going to get, and the more they're going to be able to be pushed around, because I'm not sure about their depth, but it's going to be tested, because Vanderbilt, they were able to hold the ball last year. They were able to do some things. They were able to put the ball across the end zone. I think Vanderbilt's a better scoring team this year because they have more weapons. And so they're going to, be able to hold the ball a little bit, but they're going to be more explosive at the same time. So it's going to create some sort of avalanche feeling and some sort of overwhelming feeling for a defense that's really, really good. But every great defense, it doesn't matter how good you are. If you're on the field for it, an exceptionally long amount of time, it doesn't matter. You wear down and you become ineffective. Your rush becomes a little bit slower. Your tackling becomes a little bit worse. Your concentration wanes a little bit, and you're just not as sharp. And that's what Vanderbilt's goal is going to be. And if they can disrupt some things, if they can get Kyron Drones off the field fast and keep their defense on the field, they're going to have some built-in advantages there. So that's an early look. Later on this week, we've got Alex Dono. I'm going to jump on with Locked On ACC and do a crossover, so we'll get more. We'll get an even deeper look into Virginia Tech, but just kind of on the surface, just kind of at a glance, those are some things that really kind of stood out to me about Virginia Tech. So we'll dive deeper into what problems they potentially can pose and what Vanderbilt can do against them. We'll look at all of that as we go through the week. So stay tuned for that. Keep it Locked On Vandy. We appreciate you being here. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. We're almost to 1,000. Let's get there, okay? Until next time, anchor down. Peace.